Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we'll explore how a wealthy businessman and a poor night girl turn a chance encounter into an extraordinary love story. Will it end in true love or heartbreak? Watch to find out. The film begins with Edward, a businessman. His girlfriend refuses to join him on a business trip, believing he doesn't love her, and breaks up with him. Edward borrows a car from his lawyer, Phil, who worries because Edward isn't a skilled driver. That same night, Vivian confronts her friend Kit at a bar. Kit has spent their rent money on parties and drugs, claiming the apartment is hers, and she lets Vivian stay out of kindness. Meanwhile, Edward gets lost and ends up in the red light district of Hollywood Boulevard while trying to return to his hotel in Beverly Hills. He asks a homeless person for directions, but the person thinks he's joking. Vivian, seeing Edward's confusion, approaches him, thinking he needs a date. Edward, eager to find his way, agrees to pay her for help. As they drive to Beverly Hills, Vivian notices Edward's poor driving skills and extensive knowledge of sports cars, so she takes over the wheel. They chat about her job, and Vivian mentions she charges $100 an hour, which Edward finds surprising given her modest appearance. Upon arriving at the hotel, Vivian plans to leave since Edward only paid her for directions. To her surprise, he asks her to stay with him, and she agrees. Vivian's revealing attire draws stares from hotel guests, but instead of feeling embarrassed, she flirts with Edward to provoke them. Once in his room, Edward confesses his fear of heights despite always staying in the top floor penthouse. When Vivian offers him something intimate, Edward declines, preferring to talk instead. Later, Edward offers Vivian champagne and strawberries and asks how much she would charge to stay the night. Though Vivian worries he might find her rates too high, Edward assures her he has plenty of money. They agree on a price and spend a romantic night together, eventually becoming intimate. The next day, Edward receives a call from Phil, who informs him that the owner of Moore's Industries doesn't want to sell the company. Edward decides to set up a dinner meeting with the owner and invites Vivian to join him. He offers her $3,000 to accompany him on a week-long business trip, and she agrees. Before leaving for work, he suggests she buy appropriate clothes for a fancy dinner at a luxurious restaurant. Vivian calls Kit to share the news about the trip and the $3,000 payment, which astonishes Kit. Vivian then visits a high-end clothing store, but the staff judge her by her appearance and assume she can't afford their expensive clothes. Frustrated, she returns to the hotel and vents to the manager, Barney. Empathizing with her, Barney contacts a friend to help Vivian find suitable attire. With the assistance of an elderly lady, Vivian gets the right clothes and thanks Barney. He also teaches her proper dining manners and the use of various utensils typically found in upscale restaurants. In the evening, Edward arrives to pick up Vivian and is captivated by her elegance. At the restaurant, he introduces her to James, the owner of Moore's Industries, and his grandson, David. Although Vivian has learned dining etiquette, she struggles with the escargot tongs, but James and David are polite and understanding. During dinner, they reject Edward's proposal to buy their company and mention Edward's father, prompting Edward to reveal that his father passed away last month. James warns Edward that he will take drastic measures to protect his company if Edward continues to pursue the acquisition. Back at the hotel, Edward and Vivian have a heartfelt conversation. Edward opens up about his distant relationship with his late father and regrets not being there when he died. Vivian tries to comfort him, but he asks her to rest while he goes downstairs. Unable to sleep, Vivian follows him and finds Edward playing the piano to calm himself. She compliments his skills, and Edward asks the hotel staff to leave so they can be alone. They share a romantic and intimate evening together. The next day, Edward takes Vivian shopping at a fancy clothing store, giving her his credit card and instructing the staff to treat her like a VIP after purchasing many items. Vivian revisits the store where she was previously snubbed to prove she can afford their clothes. Meanwhile, Phil notices changes in Edward's behavior, sensing that something more significant than acquiring Morris Industries is on his mind. A few days later, Edward takes Vivian to a polo match and introduces her to Phil and his wife. Phil is friendly but secretly suspicious, especially when he sees how happy Edward is around Vivian. During the match, David invites Vivian to see his horse. Phil, still distrustful, questions Edward about Vivian's background. Reluctantly, Edward admits that Vivian is a prostitute after Phil accuses her of being a spy. While Edward is busy with a senator, Phil makes advances toward Vivian and reveals that Edward told him about her being a prostitute. Hurt and disappointed, Vivian confronts Edward, leading to a heated argument. Despite Edward's apologies and attempts to give her the promised money, Vivian decides to leave. Realizing his mistake, Edward chases after her and persuades her to stay. Edward cancels his business meeting the next day to spend time with Vivian. He is enchanted by her beauty when she wears a stunning red dress and surprises her with a necklace. He tells her they are going somewhere special, which piques her curiosity. To her delight, they board a private jet to San Francisco, where Edward takes her to an opera. They grow closer over the following days, enjoying picnics and dining out. As the week ends, Edward reminds Vivian that their business arrangement is concluding. He offers her an apartment and financial support so she won't have to return to prostitution. Offended, Vivian feels he is treating her like a prostitute again. She shares a painful childhood memory of being locked in an attic and dreaming of a knight rescuing her. She thanks Edward but firmly declines his offer. Kit visits Vivian at the hotel and realizes Vivian has fallen in love with Edward, though Vivian denies it. Meanwhile, Edward attends a business meeting with James and David, where he surprises everyone by deciding to help James protect his company instead of buying it. James is pleased but curious about Edward's change of heart, which Edward attributes to trust. Phil, upset by Edward's decision, confronts Vivian at the hotel, blaming her for Edward's change. He tries to assault her, but Edward arrives just in time to stop him. Edward fires Phil and gives Vivian the agreed-upon money. When he asks her to stay one more day, Vivian kindly declines. Vivian says goodbye to Barney, who arranges for a limousine to drive her home. She plans to move to San Francisco to find a better job and continue her education. Despite trying to convince Kit to join her, Kit decides to stay, and they share a heartfelt farewell. Edward asks Barney to return a set of jewelry to the store, realizing Vivian refused it because she cares about him. Barney informs Edward that the driver who took Vivian home can take him to the airport. As Vivian prepares to leave, she hears a car horn and sees Edward in a white limousine. He refers to himself as a knight rescuing the princess. Despite his fear of heights, he climbs the stairs to express his love for Vivian. Overjoyed, Vivian kisses him and they embrace.